You're tuned into The Collective Voice, thought-provoking interviews co-hosted by young adults, fostering deep faith through courageous questions. Welcome to the conversation. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to The Collective Voice. I'm Reverend Phil Dickey, grateful to be here with you yet again. We have such a treat today. Old school throwback for anybody who's been a part of 787 Collective and been around Austin. One of our former collective council members. It's going to be a super exciting conversation. But Cece's here, and Cece's going to introduce our guest today.
Yes, as always, I'm Cece, ELCA pastor and employee of 787. And I get to have the distinct privilege of introducing a good friend of mine. This is Joel Timmons, Vicar Joel, which I lost my mind a little bit when
Vicar.
I emailed him to that email account. Joel's a former co-leader of Gather Austin, and I would love to share a little bit about how that happened after I introduced Joel. But this is just an amazing dude, and we're going to have a great conversation because of that and about who he is. He, last year, ended a big season of his life here in Austin and moved back home to Oregon, where his family is. He got married, and now he's serving his pastoral internship on the way to ordination. Joel is a great friend. He's a cyclist, runner, skier, which I know we're going to maybe talk a little bit about the ski pass that he bought. Maybe we can share about Meg's feelings, right? But yeah, Joel, we're so delighted that you joined us. I'm grateful for your friendship and for who you are, and looking forward to this conversation already. Did I miss anything?
I just feel like I have to say, for those who are just listening and not watching on YouTube, that you're really missing a really solid mustache. That's all I'm going to say. Joel is rocking a real solid mustache.
Thank you.
And he's wearing his clergy collar. So I just want to put that out there for people who are just listening, because I feel like they're missing a part of the whole here if they don't get that.
Yeah, I had a midweek service today. I had to collar up for, so super official today. Yeah, and thanks for the compliment on the mustache. I take pride.
Anything else you want to share in terms of bio?
No, I feel like that was really thorough. Thank you, Cece. I'm really excited to be here. It's kind of a weird paradigm shift to be doing a Zoom with y'all. Living in Oregon after so much time together in Austin. So super cool to be here, though.
Can we just start and say, like, Cece just listed a whole bunch of things, transition wise, and a lot of pieces that have changed in your life in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
In the United Methodist world, we often ask the question, "How is it with your soul?" Which can rub people in weird ways sometimes. But like how's life? How are you holding up in the midst of so many things that could potentially, like, any one of those things would be a lot, but you just listed Cece listed a whole bunch of things all at once. How are you holding up soul wise?
Good. Yeah, there was a lot of transition, and some of it was hard and some of it was good and exciting, and naturally there's a little bit of both of those things intermixed in all of it. But being married's cool, enjoying that. 5 stars there. Meg. Shout out
Love
Meg.
You.
Yeah, I love my wife. Yeah, and so in being back in the Pacific Northwest has been really rejuvenating. And starting something new with internship and getting to just dive head in with that. And so it's been a lot of change, but good, exciting change. And so there was a lot of grief leaving Austin, and even especially in those first few months being back here in Oregon, just adjusting to a new normal. But I'd say my soul's well. Yeah.
It feels like a song, right? It is well.
It is well with my
soul. With my soul. Should we write that down?
Write that down.
Yeah.
Cool. Joel, before we started and hit the record button, I was kind of there were two things that I wanted to bring up. One of them was just this idea of landscape, right? And that question around how is your soul, like, to go one step deeper, like, how's the landscape of your soul? Thinking about you moving home, right? I had the privilege of being up in Washington State with you this past summer with our congregations, which was like a step towards home. And I met your mom. Hi, Stephanie. And it's Stephanie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
good memory.
That would have been amazingly awkward if it wasn't. That's good.
Right. Yikes. Edit that out. But the excitement was palpable for her, right? Of having you home, knowing that
Yeah.
that's where your family is, it's where your siblings are, it's where your parents are, it's where your nephew is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the ground that you first walked, right? Like the terrain of your early years, your formative years in a different sense. I know Austin was an incredibly formative place, from seminary to work. Maybe we can say through your work with Gather, but how does it feel to be back? How has that place, the geography, the forest? I've seen your Instagram sometimes, right? Like runs in the forest, skis with your dad and your friends. How has that, the wilderness that you're a part of up there, whether it's familiar or not? Because I know Eugene isn't home, but Oregon is. How's it met you, and how's it received you, and how have you received it?
God, those are beautiful questions. Well done, Cece.
Thank you for those questions. Yeah, I think that the mountains and the big trees that just go straight upwards are very grounding for me. I remember when Meg and I were moving, we had our 2 cars, and I was pulling a U-Haul trailer with all our stuff. And we were driving through, it was the last leg, and we were exhausted. We had just hit my car that Meg was driving had its check engine light turn on the last day. And so it kind of delayed us, but we were through that. And we were driving through the Cascade Mountain Range. There's this really pretty river called the Mackenzie River, and we were driving along a highway through there, and just to see like the rushing waters in the mountains and the trees. It was just like kind of an overwhelming sense of feeling like I'm home, and I kind of teared up in the car, and it was so surreal, but also very real at the same time, where it was like, I'm here, and this, to your point, Cece, this is the place that raised me. And so to be back is a privilege, and in my whole journey along the way, there's been so much goodness, but to finally be home after 11 years feels really, really good. So I'm grateful.
Can I say, Joel, before Phil jumps in, like, chills, truly.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way when we moved back to Texas, which, love-hate relationship with Texas, I'll be honest. A lot of that hate comes from the political realm, right? And, but right now is the most beautiful season. The bluebonnets are popping up. Yeah. We've had the most gorgeous year of purple mountain laurels, ever, I think, in my life. And I walk by them every day, and I have to stop and smell. The redbud trees, the pink flowers are like just ending and sprouting green. And there's a bit of beauty in that. And I'm I want to come visit, and we've been talking offline about that.
Yeah.
We're gonna make it happen.
Let's figure it out.
We're gonna figure it out.
787 trip to the Pacific Northwest?
No, seriously. I'll book my tickets right now. But and I brought this up in our pre-recording, but like John O'Donohue has this concept around the inner landscape of beauty and the wildness. He's a I think Scottish, right? Late Scottish theologian, Celtic. And the growing up in the wilds is what he talks about, and how that landscape shaped the landscape of his soul. And so it's such an interesting time for you to be in this transition of like really stepping up into leadership in a different way, right? Like I've never seen you with a collar on, and I love it.
Yeah, pretty weird, huh?
No, not weird at all. Like amazing. But to do that at home, like, didn't Jesus preach his first sermon at home?
Well, that's what my question was going to be, because it also didn't really go well for Jesus, right? Preaching in his home, right? Like a prophet is never welcome in his hometown. So has there been a weird sense of like, I know, because Cece said you're in Eugene, which was not actually home, right? So it may not be
so I'm like 2 hours south.
Okay, so it may not be quite the same, right? But I can assure you, if I went back to my hometown and preached, it would probably not go real well. Like small town Missouri, Phil is not the same as Phil now, and small town Missouri is still small town Missouri, and there's a lot of lovely things about it. I don't say it to just like speak really terribly about it. Like just ideologically, we're not always on the same page, and so has there been a weird sense of like, oh, I was not a minister when I left here, and now I'm back, and I know you're in the whole process still, but like you're home, and is it weird to step into the home space in a kind of a new role, you know?
Yeah, it has felt weird, and it hasn't been like bad by any means. Um, but there are some kind of like it's this weird blending of these very clear boundaries that I used to have between like, where I was in Austin. I was like, that's where my career is, that's where my young adult life is, and then I would go travel to Portland and be home, and you know, and whenever you're home, you like kind of revert back to your like 16-year-old self, where you're bickering with your siblings and
100%.
stirring trouble. And so kind of trying to ease those things into one another has you know, been a process. I feel as if it's helpful to have a family that is pretty forgiving in that sense, where they're, you know, like we kind of have our boundaries of like when we kind of dive into things and maybe when we don't. And but they've also just been supportive. Like my family will come down. They were here for Christmas Eve services, which was really sweet. And my parents might come down on a Sunday morning to worship and stuff like that. But there is a kind of a weirdness to it, where it feels a little bit like an imposter syndrome, where I'm like, man, I'm normally a twerp here. Like I'm a knucklehead in Portland, Oregon, you know? And so to be back in Oregon as in this kind of context is, I think, something I'm still probably wrestling with. And I wonder if I ever take a call in Portland, what that would look like, and kind of making those connections. So yeah, we'll see. But a little weird, but also kind of normal at the same time.
Well, Joel, let me say first, I don't experience you as a twerp, and so like, yay there. But one of the blessings I feel, because I'm back in my hometown, right? Austin's the place that raised me, and we've made pretty intentional choices around where we live. Because I moved here with someone who's not from Austin. My husband, Mike, featured on the podcast last week. For our listeners,
Shout
please
out,
listen
Mike.
to that episode. Joel's BFF, right? Just buddies. But we came home, my home, and in order to help it become our home, how we did things, like where we chose to live, how we chose to be in relationship with other people, not just all of Cece's old friends or Cece's old church, was intentional. But there's something so sweet about going back and being loved by the people that raised you, not just your mom and dad, but like the people beyond that.
Yeah.
And you have so many of those people here in Austin. I mean, my gosh, I go to Shepherd of the Hills and drop the name Joel, and it would be a swarm of just fans. And I think of every month that we have gather, I think, God, I miss Joel. Like his mark is still in this community. So one, a reminder that if you need some of that pepping up, to remind yourself you're not actually a twerp, let us know. Let us love you back to your whole self.
Sweet.
But
yeah, Cece, go ahead. No, I was just thinking about what you said, and you know, having kind of a community that really surrounds you, and a place that people that have seen you as a child. Even the other week, I got coffee with my second grade teacher. It was so cool. She was down in Eugene visiting her aunt or something like that, and she reached out and we got coffee, and it was so cool to, you know, talk about all the really amazing things that she's done and all the kids that she's taught and loved on so well over the years. And then, I don't know, to kind of, again, to that point where you get to, like, I don't know, show her this like adult version of second grade Joel. And that's kind of a special thing. And so, yeah, there's something totally sweet about being home.
Okay, this is a little different than what we usually do, but I want to just run this by you, or just try this. What's the word that's stirring in me, like listening to this, is this word return. As you hear the word return, what does that stir in you?
Well, I think of Lent. Returning to the Lord is a big theme in Lent, and I think a little bit in my own life. Now we've talked about transition and stuff. Like the first part of this transition was crazy. Like moving and saying goodbye to a community that I had loved for so many years in Austin was really hard. I cried a lot. And then 3 days before my internship started, my wife and I got married. we moved into a new house, and it was just like, it was crazy. And, and I'm at 2 different churches for my internship. So getting to know 2 different congregations and establish myself in that way was tricky. It wasn't tricky, but it was a transition, and it just takes time. And now I'm halfway through. I submitted my 6-month eval last Friday, and so now I feel like it's like that. I feel settled finally, but now I can sense that the transition kind of reoccurring again, with what's coming up after internship, and kind of that uneasiness, a little, just there's a sense of vulnerability in transition. And so I think of the wilderness in that sense too, where you're kind of journeying through the unknown. But return is a kind of a biblical call, right? When people are going through hard times, they remember what God has done, and they kind of return in that sense. And so I love the church calendar and kind of the rhythms that it provides for us. Before Lent, there's Transfiguration Sunday, like this mountaintop experience. And so I think in the season of Lent, you can harken back to those moments where you're in the wilderness, and you can return back to these, maybe in your hearts or in minds, those mountaintop experiences, the places that like sustain you and give you the nourishment that you need. And I think there's always a returning process when you do that. So return, yeah, that's a meaningful word.
I love that you bring up Lent yourself, because that's kind of been a topic within our podcast throughout this season, is wondering about Lenten practices, Lenten disciplines, how we are being shaped in that season. So I will just start by asking, like, did you pick up, put down anything this Lent? How it's your role at Shepherd of the Hills was so much different than just youth director, right? Like you were integrated into honestly, like a unofficial minister there. Like, it's not as if you were not a part of it, but here on internship, as you're living into this explicit call in your life, like even just as clearly, like putting on a collar and doing a midweek service, kind of bolstering it up in a different way. How has Lent been in that side, right? Where you always were behind the scenes of things at Shep, but now maybe even more so have a hand in orchestration, which for me, my experience didn't always leave space for me to be personally fed or personally nourished, or take that intentional time for myself, because there was so much being asked of in the work realm.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a gift to internship, is discernment and processing, kind of like with CPE, when you have to do like all the evals, and you talk about things with your coach and all that.
What does CPE stand for those who don't know?
Clinical pastoral experience, when you do a little chaplaincy internship at the hospital, where I have weekly meetings with my supervisor, and he's been really, really fantastic. That was a really big draw to this internship site, was my supervisor. And so he's been someone that I can really turn to, and he's intentional about not letting things just kind of just be. You want to be intentional in your own practices and spirituality. And so he's helped me with that. And so I think, kind of answering that question, I feel like I've been able to tap into some Lenten practices. My wife and I, we gave up social media except for Saturdays, and that's been good. I'm just on my phone far too much as it is, and so that's kind of a nice break. But I think a theme for me in this Lenten season has been vulnerability. Again, with the kind of the liminal space of transition, that can be really hard. And I think my coping mechanism naturally is to kind of step back and hide myself. But instead, I think that Lent invites us into vulnerability and to be honest and open and let things out, and really kind of tap into whatever you're feeling or experiencing. I think about, actually, from last week's gospel reading. It was from the woman at the well. And there's this part of that story where she is, Jesus says, he invites her, he says, go and bring your husband back and come back. And she could have been like, yeah, great, I'll see you in 5 minutes, and then never showed up again, because like that's an uncomfortable place. And instead she like steps into this vulnerable space and is like, I don't have a husband, you know. And I feel like that's a fascinating story where she like steps into vulnerability and chooses that instead of choosing to just avoid confrontation, and she's transformed because of it. And so I'm that's something I'm trying to tap into with feeling like this sense of discernment in the season and change is vulnerability, and really trying to open myself up to what I might experience and what transformation might happen. And so I think that's kind of been at the forefront of my Lenten practices.
Can I say, Joel, that I love that so much? And also I want to push back because like I know you, right? And I did this last week with Mike, which is really fun to have people I know on this podcast. But
yeah,
y'all, 3 years ago, I don't know. I think 3 years ago, Joel and I sat down for happy hour. He started coming to Gather, and, you know, we were both in candidacy. I knew who he was. He knew who I was. And we both had this mutual, like, let's get to know each other, right? We're the same age, same life stage. Let's be friends.
Was there a competitiveness there because you were both in this? Like,
probably. You should see us at mini golf, right, Joel?
I have no. Too soon.
We'll get back to that. Anyways, Lord. So we sat down for happy hour, and in the back of my mind, I had in mind the fact that our current co-leader at Gather at that time, Andrew Thompson, was going to transition away from Gather leadership. Joel and I sat down together in like March or April. Andrew was leaving in May. We had a short timeline of things would only be on me, and I needed another co-leader. So I went in, was going to do a vibe check, get to know this awesome guy who's turned into a wonderful friend, and also see how the Spirit moved. And like 2 hours into this, what I thought was going to be, like an hour-long happy hour, I just kind of went for it. I was like, Joel, like, how do you think? And he was like, no, like, that's why I'm here. Like, I want to do this. I want to lead this. I want to be a part of this. And I'm glad maybe the learning here is for you, the growth of slowing down, because I've seen you as a gut person to be able to be like, no, I want it. I'm going for it. How does that wrestle with you or sit with you in this season of transition?
Yeah. Well, I that's something Meg, my wife, and I talk a lot about is trying to sit with those gut feelings, because I think you're right. There's something to be said for trusting your gut in understanding the Spirit at work in that. I guess I think just transition is hard though, because it's like I think sometimes like the last day of vacation for me is my least favorite day. Like I'm just like, I'd rather be home by now than being here. You know what I mean? And so but there's so much that can be lost if you're not present and really trying to sit with wherever you're at. And so I think that's maybe part of it for me is just wanting to rush through it so I can get on to the next thing and feel settled. But instead, maybe to your point, Cece, slowing down and letting the Spirit do the transforming that I'm kind of hoping for.
I'm like going to keep peppering you with esoteric questions right now. So you mentioned wilderness, and you talked about the scriptural text from the gospel text from last week. Is there like a scriptural text or something that's really sitting with you and carrying you through this season of transition?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I love I feel like our lectionary's been on fire lately. Psalm 121 has been a favorite of mine. I lift my eyes to the hills or the mountains, and where does my help come from? Again, kind of positioned in the valley of Lent. So we're being able to look back, like, and see the times where God was at work prior. I think about Austin a lot. Actually, I have this little scrapbook that Shepherd of the Hills made me, my church that I worked at there, and I look at that a lot. Or there's a picture of my Gather Austin people on my shelf, and and I think that's a kind of that returning, right, where you kind of harken back to these moments of clarity, or moments of just, I don't know, where I did feel settled, or where I could see God working in transition then. And, that kind of can give you the strength to keep venturing through the unknown as it is.
And remembering that, like, that's what the people of God have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, and being flung into the desert 40 years, which really just means like an unknown amount of time. Could have been way longer, could have been way shorter. And journeying in that wilderness time alongside of the people and the Spirit of God. I'm wondering how God's meeting you, how the Spirit's meeting you in this time, and in that process of slowing down. I mean, so much of this is not up to you, right? Like the discernment about where you go next, that you can't just say there and that's how it works out. But where's God in this equation, and the Spirit?
Yeah, one quick side note there, thinking about the Israelites wandering through the desert and that being their wilderness. Yeah, my wilderness really isn't that bad. I get to like go skiing with my family every other weekend or so, and go trail running with my wife through beautiful country. So that's an important reminder. For me, I feel as if whenever I feel the most vulnerable or lacking the most control is when I feel like God is doing the most work, at least in my life, because it's just that honesty of saying, hey, I'm not in control, and I don't have to pretend that I do. And I think in a sense you can just give that to God and trust and walk by faith in that sense. So I think that God is present in change. Maybe most so. At least it's most clear, I think.
I think Octavia Butler said God is change, but we go down that road another day. But I'm curious. Yeah, if you haven't read Octavia Butler, put that on your reading list. But one of the other things we talk about a lot on the podcast is this idea of belonging. Like, and I hear you talking about Austin and this deep belonging you had at the church you worked at and with Gather and in these spaces. Maybe as your seminary community too, right? Like all these different spaces where you had really important belonging, and then uprooting that and moving, but not just moving, but also moving with this sense of it may not be long-term here.
Yeah.
I think, especially for young adults, this is a really important piece of how do you invest in a space to find belonging, knowing that it may not be for a really long time.
Yeah. A pastor mentor of mine in undergrad, I remember when I was leaving there and saying goodbye to a faith community and obviously a school community that I really, really loved and had so much formation in. It was hard to say goodbye, and she had been at a number of churches prior and was naturally just so good at diving into community and making really deep connections. And so I asked her, I was like, is it ever just not worth it? And because it hurts so much. And she's like, no, don't ever stop diving into relationship, because it's always worth it, even if it is hard to say goodbye. And so I think about that. Her name is Angie Larson. She's in Minnesota. She's a really wonderful woman. So I think about that, and because you're right. It's easy to kind of just say, hey, I'm just going to be here for 6 more months. Just going to batten down the hatches and just do what I need to get through. But that's not really worth it. I think that's a slippery slope. Life can feel that way, where it's always, oh, I'm just going to get through the next thing. And then you kind of live your whole life that way. And you miss something. I think that's like a whole theological approach. Like people that are often it's always like I'm just going to punch my ticket to heaven and that's all that matters. Like, it's like, yo, you're missing out on eternal abundant life right here, right now, when you think that way. And I think the same is true for any chapter of your life. Dive in. I only have 3 friends here though. So, 4, including my wife, here in Eugene, but it's still worth it to tap into those relationships.
Can I just affirm that whole, especially in the ministry realm of it? I remember the first church I worked at, and only ended up working there for a year, which was not my intention, but for a variety of scenarios, I ended up moving to Dallas and the whole thing. But I did youth ministry there, and I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, this feels like the worst breakup ever, because it's like all these students that I, just in a year's time, I'd grown to love so dearly, and having to leave them was hard. Luckily, I got to go back and do a couple of their weddings. Like, it was like, but it was just in essence like a fruit of that investment. Yeah.
And to leave and it not hurt means that you didn't tap into those relationships, and there wasn't that love that was created. So in my mind, it's worth it because you get to love and be loved, and that's pretty sweet.
I love there you not just say it's worth it because you get to be loved. Like, it's worth it because you get to love and be loved. That was the essence of my campus pastor's sermon at my ordination, right? Teach and love, but be taught and be loved. I want to ask you so many things, Joel. I want to ask you about the eternal abundant life right here, right now that you're experiencing. I want to ask you about these 3 friends of yours and how, like, it's hard for ministry people. It is hard for young adults who move somewhere and become a pastor or a deacon or a music director or a youth director, whatever it is, to find friends, because so much is being poured into the community. And I also want to ask, like, I'll be honest, you and Meg leaving was one of the hardest goodbyes of last year for me. Right? And like, oof, shove it down, Cece. Like, it still is.
Tears are welcome. It's okay.
I know. That's my best friend's mom telling me to shove it down at my best friend's wedding, because I was just sobbing the whole day. Shout out, Jenny, love you. But like, Joel made such immense community, and Meg, in Austin. Like, we went to some of their like graduation parties, their goodbye parties, and it was people from the seminary, people from the cycling group, Meg's coworkers, gather friends, like this huge, deep and wide community. And I know everyone felt that way. Like, y'all made such a level of investments. Like, that to me was eternal and abundant life. Right? Like, our friendship, your friendship with Mike, our friendship with Meg is eternal and abundant life. So how are you seeing that in Eugene and this season of your life where you're able to pour more in with your family? I know how important your family is with you, especially seeing your nephew. He's like maybe a year younger than my nephew, and we have so much joy about the babies. Yeah, what does that look like, man?
Yeah, I think if you really stop and pay attention to it, you're right, it's all around. It's in the things in the past and the beauty of deep and profound relationships and community in Austin, but it's also here and now. I mean, we were joking about the 3 friends, 2 of whom, Owen, who's been on the 787 Collective podcast, was he connected us with this delightful couple. One of whom Cece. Harrison, you guys did swim lessons? Or not swim lessons?
We did swim team together. Hello, Harrison.
I know everybody. Small world. Oh my gosh.
He's live in Austin, and then his girlfriend Libby grew up with Owen, and they're a wonderful couple. We've had a lot of fun with them, and there's a couple young adults in our church here that we enjoy connecting with. But yeah, I think that there's abundant life, just I don't know where you look for it. I do love being with my family and being able to go skiing with my brother, because he can sometimes get Mondays off when I have my day off, and we get to go do that. Time where, because we have less friends in our current city that we live in, Meg and I get to spend a lot of time together. And I'm sure that someday we're going to look back on this and think about what a gift it is that we get to like we signed up for a trail race that we're training for, even though we might sometimes go for it runs at different times or at different paces sometimes. Like we get to do it together, and that's a privilege. So it's all around. Family, friends, a gracious internship site that is one of the churches that I'm at. I'm the 37th intern since the 80s. So that tells a story. Like they know how to welcome in a young intern and love on them and help them grow and learn. And I think that's so cool. So that's abundant life too.
Can we stay there for a second? Because I think this is important kind of for the church in general, but like, what is it that a church, not every church has the opportunity to welcome a young intern, right? But like thinking about what it means to be invitational and welcome a young person, especially like this, who's only going to potentially be there for a year. And what are the things that makes a church hospitable and invitational for a scenario like that?
I think so that church specifically, one of their gifts is just like this warmth. And they're very non-pretentious. They just show up. They show up for each other and, in their own ways. And they're kind of a quirky bunch, but they're just them. And they're so authentic. And I love that. And so then you can immediately be yourself. I don't have to be too important or try too hard. I can just be Joel, and they're gonna love me, and then I get to love them in return. And so there's a lot that's really wonderful about them, but I think that they trust really well. I think trust is huge. Trust and authenticity, I would say, maybe are the two most important things to make a good internship site.
Thanks, Joel. I know selfishly, I also want to ask you about Gather Austin, right? It's been 6 months since you were here, maybe more now. I don't need you to sing our praises. Like, I don't need that. But like, how?
She's not saying not to though either, right?
Yeah, right. You know me. But Shepherd of the Hills, I know, was so impactful to you, and that was your bread and butter for years. And you kept wondering, like, okay, it's time for internship. No, I'm staying. It's time for internship. No, I'm staying. And I can get it, like, why that church you would want to stay at every time I'm there. I think it's a great community. Shout out Shep Hills. Love you, Lauren. Love you, Ryan. Love the whole community. And I would hope to say that Gather was a formative place for you too. And as you look back, right, like you were there for 2 years, huge important person. I still, like I said, talk about you all the time there. I don't know. Are there gifts? Are there challenges? Are there things that you're taking from these communities? Like you get your campus ministry, which I know is so formative for you, right? Pre-seminary. You have APTS. Joel's an alum. You have Shepherd of the Hills. You have Gather. And now you have these 2 internship congregations. How are they marking you? And like, you get to take a little piece of each of them.
Yeah.
Make it your blanket. Yeah. Tuck that blanket in and feel warm and cozy.
Yeah. Well, let me dive in here with Gather Austin. I feel like prior to that, my Shepherd of the Hills has been the only place where I've been like a leader in a church setting, like I guess professionally. And so there as a youth minister. And so I had a very clear boundary of like who I am versus who youth minister Joel is, because, like it's important to establish strong boundaries when you work with youth. And so you can kind of compartmentalize in that sense. But then with Gather Austin, it was like this, again, I felt so vulnerable because I am a young adult and we're walking alongside young adults. And that was like a confusing thing for me at first. And I didn't really know how to do that quite well. And you know what I mean? It was just like a learning curve. But then by the end, you get to like understand, again, just like being vulnerable and being myself, and also getting to having the privilege to lead alongside you was such a cool thing. And by the end, it was such a meaningful group and just a people that I found to love so deeply. Just with how much fun we would have, and I don't know, all our Bible studies. And I think that those times where we really got to have meaning making in our group. And then our, I don't know, even mini golf, like Cece and I, wow, I am ashamed to say I've never beat Cece in a round of mini golf before. And that pains me. But that's our group.
I am the champion, let's say.
This hurts, but it's true.
And look at that. Like, it took time to admit. And to be fair, y'all, Joel and I faced off at mini golf, May of 2025. The day before, or like 2 days before, Joel was in a biking accident. Thank God he was okay. We pick him up from his apartment. Yeah, look at that. It was bad. Pick him up from his apartment. This man is like on some pain reliever. He's not all there. It is like 100 degrees outside. I'm just like, Joel, drink your water. Joel, what do we need to do? And I still only beat him by 1 point, and he was using his non-dominant hand. Like, we take mini golf seriously, but I am the winner. And I did win 2 years in a row.
It hurts.
Like salt on a wound.
Feels that way.
Humble
Literally,
too,
yeah.
right?
That's right.
But I think this is kind of what I'm getting at in how I think, well, Cece, you taught me this. I learned this from you, and then also just from being in that incredible community, is getting to be yourself while in a leadership role. I don't think that that's always the easiest thing to figure out. And you set the tone there with your authenticity, but your deep care and love and respect for your faith and the faith of others, but also just for who they are as people. And so I got to see that and learn from you in that. And so I think that was really cool. And I think I get to be a better leader because of that. So, yeah. Shout out Gather Austin. That's so fun. We had so much fun. I can't get over it.
I just
Too
love
much fun.
Well, it's like fun, right? Like, and I think that's we don't talk about fun maybe enough, right, in the church. And so what a gift to just hear you say we had so much fun together, whether it was mini golfing. I know y'all have done a lot of different activities and fun things together. And I don't know, is there a word there, Joel, for just young adults in general as they think about what their faith looks like moving forward, or maybe they're struggling to connect like what faith looks like in this next season of life for them, and like how does fun play into that?
Well, I was watching, I think it was Sam Johnson on this podcast. She talked about joy as resistance. We have got to take that seriously.
That'll preach.
My goodness, it is exhausting. Our world is so, it breaks your heart day after day. And I think it should break your heart, and I think we should follow it and name the wrongs that are in our world and not be ignorant to it. But you gotta find an outlet, and joy is that. It's such a healthy way. I mean, like, our bodies, like, when you do something fun or go exercise or whatever, like, your body produces endorphins that like helps counter like all of these negative energies that are just we're being bombarded with. And so joy is in fact resistance, and mini golf is a really good way to have joy, personally, or skiing or running. There's so many different ways. But I think people should understand that not as like this guilty thing that, I go and enjoy myself. You know what I mean? Like, you have to go do that. That's like, I mean, joy is a fruit of the Spirit. You should find joy.
I was just talking with a young adult about that today, and it was a big question she asked, like, can I be joyful when the world is what it is? And I was like, honestly, you have to, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it is resistance, and because like every liberation theology, right? Whether it is Black, queer, feminist, womanist, Latine, like, etc. It's like, it's a part of the resistance, because they will keep trying to squash us, and they'll keep trying to take our joy. And we then have a responsibility. It's like when Miriam danced through the Red Sea. right? Like they sang a song of praise. And yeah, right behind them, Pharaoh and the army was being drowned. Like that's some real stuff. But we sing that right at camp, and all of Pharaoh's army does the dead man's float, right? Like,
yeah. But yeah, and then you think about like all like the trauma that is involved there for those people, and then, but it's not. But they still have joy. You know, you have to like it's like it's a tension thing. You can't ignore joy. That's a good example, Cece.
What's bringing you joy right now, Joel? As we get to the end of this time, right? How do you want to leave us?
I think there's a lot of joy. I think kind of it's been all the things that we've talked about already. Being in a place that feels like home and returning to that. Having my family around, getting to tap into a new chapter of life with my wife. Again, that's so fun to say. You still get used to that after 6 months. And doing our life together has been a lot of fun. I love to go skiing and being outside. I did sell my bike officially, so the cycling chapter's over. One too many crashes. So yeah, but I love to be outside and go.
That's a business decision right there.
Yeah, actually, I traded in one expensive hobby for another. I went with skiing instead of cycling, but I couldn't do both.
That's fair.
Yeah, but yeah, I find joy in a lot of places right now, and I find joy in these congregations that are welcoming me in and allowing me to grow and make mistakes and be an intern or vicar, as some might call it in the church. It's that tension of wilderness, but also like an amazing sense of joy and fulfillment and feeling grateful.
Well, if somebody finds himself in Eugene, Oregon, where can they find you?
Central Lutheran, Eugene, Oregon. I live in the back parking lot, essentially, in Parsonage. So you could find me there. You could find me, there's this place called the Ridgeline Trail. Lovely place to go for a hike or a jog. I love ice cream, so I might be at Prince Puckler's. It's the best ice cream in town. Yeah.
I will say, Joel, I have just so much joy getting to see your face and getting to hear your stories and reminisce and go deep with you. So thank you for your time and for your friendship and for sharing, so that, whether it's friends that I'm going to send this to, right? Like former church members of yours, current church members of yours, gather friends of yours, and also like random young adults out there who are also in seasons of wilderness are going to listen and I think feel a sense of unity and solidarity because of what you shared. So big part of the joy of my day was being right here in this eternal abundant life, right here, right now, with you.
Love that.
Your words, man.
Amen to that.
Well, what a joy to be here with y'all. I mean, it's such an honor. Thank you for asking me. Yeah, and I miss the two of you so much, and all of the lovely people of Austin and Shepherd of the Hills and Gather Austin and Austin Seminary. So when you see people, tell them I miss them.
We'll say Vicar Joel said, sending his love.
You're like, who? What does vicar even mean?
That's fair. Yeah.
I'll just show a picture of you and your mustache and be like, oh yeah, that guy.
That guy. He's got a collar on now.
Yeah.
Love it. Joel, truly, thank you. We're grateful for you and blessings to your continued ministry, and we look forward to seeing what happens next for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Collective Voice, the premier podcast of the 787 Collective. For more information, visit us at 787collective.org or find us on social media. And if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate us, and share a review. For when you do, you are tricking the algorithm for the common good.